The wheels of my suitcase rattled softly against the concrete, echoing through the empty street as the late afternoon sun dipped behind the rooftops of Maple Ridge Estate. The neighborhood looked exactly as I'd left it. Quiet, manicured, and deceptively peaceful. The kind of place where nothing ever seemed out of order. I had come home early, 2 weeks ahead of schedule, from a grueling cybersecurity contract in Tokyo. The flight had been long, the jet lag heavier than usual, but beneath the fatigue was a flicker of relief. After months abroad, I was finally back where I belonged. My house, my space, my peace. But peace was the last thing waiting for me. When I turned the corner onto my street, dragging my suitcase behind me, I noticed something strange. The front door was cracked open, just slightly, but enough to send a pulse of unease through me. I slowed my steps. Maybe a package had been delivered and someone had left it ajar. Maybe my house cleaner had forgotten to lock it. I told myself anything to quiet the rising dread. And then I saw her, there, lounging on my own porch like she just stepped out of a lifestyle magazine, was Patricia Lorn, the head of the Homeowners Association. She sat back on one of my lounge chairs, my favorite silk robe wrapped around her like a crown, sipping wine from one of my crystal glasses. The audacity of it took my breath away. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was disbelief. The brain tries to reject what the eyes see when logic refuses to make sense of it. I blinked twice, hoping the image would shift, but no. There she was, calm as a summer breeze, drinking my wine and my robe on my porch. I stopped at the base of the steps and just stared. The soft hum of the neighborhood faded, replaced by the pounding of my heartbeat. Patricia looked up, and for one brief moment, our eyes met. In that instant, her expression flickered. Shock, then guilt, then something darker. Entitlement. I saw it plain as day. She wasn't ashamed. She was offended, as if I was the one trespassing. That was the moment I knew exactly how this would go. My lawyer, Adrian, had predicted this reaction weeks earlier when I sent him the footage. He told me, she'll panic, then attack. Stay calm. Let her make the first mistake. And he was right. Patricia straightened abruptly, nearly spilling her wine as she snatched her phone. The silence shattered with the sound of her voice, shrill, panicked, performative. I didn't move. I didn't interrupt. I let her call the police and spin her story, every word of it a lie. She claimed a stranger had broken into her home. She claimed she was terrified, alone, in danger. She painted herself as a victim while standing barefoot on my porch, wrapped in my wife's silk robe. By the time the sirens pierced the air, my calm had crystallized into something sharper. Focus. I had spent years building digital defenses for billion-dollar corporations. I knew how to plan, how to prepare, and how to prove the truth. Patricia didn't realize that while she was calling 911, I was recording everything. 2 squad cars tore around the corner, lights flashing, tires screeching against the pavement. The whole neighborhood began to stir. Curious faces peeking from windows and driveways, watching as the drama unfolded. The officers stepped out, hands resting near their holsters. I could see the suspicion in their eyes. They didn't know who I was yet, only what they'd been told. "Sir, we got a report." One of them started. I lifted my phone and interrupted gently. "Before you say anything, I'd like to show you something." I pulled up my home security feed, live access to my cameras, timestamps, logs, everything. They watched as the footage played back. Patricia and her husband, Stuart, letting themselves in, eating my food, sleeping in my bed, hosting guests, pouring my scotch, living in my house like it was theirs. Patricia's face drained of color as the evidence rolled on. The officer's posture changed from guarded to stunned. Then came the audio, her own voice, bragging to a neighbor that she knew my travel dates, that she had access to my keys through the HOA, that she'd leave before I got back. The smugness in her tone was a final nail. When the officers turned to her, the illusion shattered completely. Patricia tried to talk her way out of it, stumbling, stammering, blaming confusion, claiming she was just checking on the property. But the truth was playing out right there in crystal clear HD. Her husband appeared on the porch mid-chaos, his face frozen in horror when he saw the footage. In that instant, The queen of the HOA became just another trespasser caught red-handed. They placed her in cuffs while the neighbors watched in silence. Some whispered, others recorded. No one came to her defense. The woman who had ruled this neighborhood with fines and threats was being escorted to the back of a police car, her power stripped as quickly as it had been abused. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just stood there, breathing in the evening air, reclaiming the quiet she had violated. To understand how it all came to this, you have to rewind a few months. When I first moved into Maple Ridge, I thought I'd found peace. The house was everything I had worked for, a sleek, modern build of glass and steel, clean lines, minimal noise. After years of living out of airports and rented apartments, I wanted roots, stability. I met Patricia on my second day. She showed up at my door with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her first words weren't a welcome. They were a warning. My black mailbox. She said, violated community standards. I'd be fined daily until I replaced it. It was a small thing, but it set the tone. Every week brought another notice. Trash bins, plants, packages, even the length of my grass. She had a way of speaking like every word she said was law. I learned to stay polite, to comply just enough to avoid open war. But deep down, I knew people like Patricia didn't stop when you gave them ground. They only pushed harder. When I got the assignment in Tokyo, HOA rules required I notify the board before leaving. I sent a quick email with my travel dates and contact info. I didn't think twice. That single message was all she needed. 2 weeks into the trip, I started noticing strange activity on my smart home dashboard. The thermostat changed temperature. The fridge logged new groceries. The door sensors showed entry at odd hours. At first, I assumed it was a glitch. But when I checked the cameras, the truth hit me like ice water. There she was, Patricia, lounging on my couch, wearing my throw blanket, watching my TV. Her husband was beside her, flipping channels like it was a vacation rental. They looked comfortable, too comfortable. They weren't just entering my home. They were living in it. The footage got worse. I watched her hosting guests on my patio, drinking from my collection of vintage scotch, even opening the box of Eleanor's things. My late wife's keepsakes I hadn't touched since her passing. The moment I saw Patricia drape one of Eleanor's silk scarves around her neck, smiling in my mirror, something in me broke. That wasn't just trespassing anymore. That was desecration. I wanted to call the police immediately, but I forced myself to think. Emotion couldn't win this. Evidence would. So I started collecting footage, logs, timestamps, everything. I documented every violation, every movement, every arrogant act. By the time I contacted Adrienne, my lawyer, I had enough to bury her case in digital proof. Adrienne's plan was simple. Come home early, catch her in the act, and let her dig her own grave. That's exactly what happened. When she called the police that afternoon, she thought she was controlling the story. She didn't realize I'd already written the ending. Patricia and her husband were charged with burglary, unlawful occupancy, and theft of property. The HOA board voted to remove her permanently. The rule requiring homeowners to provide spare keys was abolished. The neighborhood changed after that. People who once whispered behind blinds now smiled and waved. Some even apologized, quietly, for never standing up to her. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a victory party or post about it online. I just walked through each room of my house, replaced the locks, and took back what was mine. The silence that night felt different. Heavier, but pure. It wasn't just about property. It was about dignity. The right to exist in your own space without someone deciding they have more claim to it than you do. Patricia's downfall taught me something I'll never forget. Power, when unchecked, always reveals its true face. Sometimes it hides behind wealth or policy or a title, but in the end, arrogance always exposes itself. When I look back now, I don't see a woman stealing a house. I see a system that lets people believe ownership means authority over others. I see how easily boundaries blur when entitlement goes unchallenged. And I see myself standing there, suitcase in hand, on a warm afternoon, finally realizing that peace isn't something you buy with money. It's something you protect. Because the house may be mine, but the respect, that's something no one will ever take again.